afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to another installation of Moroccan Post. I am Tamara L. I have with me once again Abdullah L. Talib Mosi Bey to my right, Shem Malachi Bey. We are here to bring forth part 3 of Checkmate. The Crown Owns the United States. Now, before we get started, we would like to know where you can contact, subscribe, and support. You can support us on Facebook at United Republic of Morocco, Academy of Providence, Moroccan Post, Tamara L, as well as Abdullah Bey personal Facebook page. Please subscribe to our YouTube page at Moroccan Post News, United Republic of Morocco, as well as Crom TV. Now, Academy of Providence, we have our sponsor, Academy of Providence. You can take classes through Academy of Providence at academyofprovidence.org. Also, if you're looking to purchase material to learn about your heritage, your culture, ancestor, and the pride that you once had when we were in control, please go to Abdullah L. Talib Mosi Bey's page at mooresandmasonry.org. We also have a caucus in which we have Moorish Imperial Restoration Caucus, in which we are helping to facilitate bringing the various Moorish body politics into alignment for the restoration of our Moorish Imperial Divan. And you can go to our website and learn more about how you can get involved with restoring your Moorish government at UnitedRepublicOfMorocco.com. And as always, please support us in the works that we're doing and helping to spread the information, educate our people about their history, their cultural, their cultural festivals. You can do that through our Cash App at Tamara DEL. Now, fellas, you want to say anything to the people? I know we were not here last month. We had some conflict schedules. You want to say anything to our listening audience this evening before we get right into it?
I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be educating and bringing forth the philosophy and the true concepts and norms that help our people get back to what they need to belong, to claim a political existence and also a cultural identity attached to that. Thank you.
This is a great opportunity for us to continue to bring to facilitate the process to bring our mother out of a coma. I use a coma analogy because a coma is a prolonged state of unconsciousness. So we're looking at a prolonged state of political activity. We're looking at for over a period of 200 years. So we have to restore the Moorish statehood. We entered the international community on the reversion of sovereignty or post-millennium. All right, so it's a good opportunity for us to continue to that process of getting us back to, statehood status.
All right, now before we get started, we're going to go back. We're going to go back down memory lane. In January, actually it was in February, we started out with this 3-part series called Checkmate. The Crown Owns the United States. And we're breaking down parts. Yeah, it was the second week. We're breaking down parts of the unfolding of the relationship between the Crown as well as the United States. Now, in part 1, we, in that segment, we spoke about the United States is not the successor of the British Crown. And in doing that, we also noted that the United States is the fiduciary guardian of the British Crown. Now, if you'd like to go back and look at this content, you can always go to our page on YouTube, and you'll be able to go back and look at the broadcast for part 1 as well as part 2. The information is posted out there. Now, as we talked about, it has been told in United States schools and all the grade levels that the United States defeated the English and the British Crown in the Revolutionary War, and as a result became sovereign authority over all the 13 British colonies in 1783. Well, that's a lie. That's not true. So based off the information and research, the United States position is the fiduciary guardian of the British Crown. Shem, you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. We have to go back to the lower proprietors. You have to go back to the charter, the ones that originally was granted the charter in the rank of the British ranks. There was a revoke. They teach that it was the commons. It was not that. It was the marquises and commissioners and generals that was working commission under the colony. There was a fallout. they brought the people involved to help them out because the people are subjects. They brought them involved to campaign against the crown. When that happened, they were forced to leave the colony territory. Those that was opposing the authority of the Lord Proprietors, the patent holders, the letters of grant, and the crown. They was forced to leave. When they left, they had nowhere to go. So they came to the Lenape Moors, and the Lenape Moors gave them asylum and amnesty. Now let's deal with the word asylum. See, nobody wants to talk about this. We have to talk about this if we illuminate ourselves out of this coma that Professor Abdullah said we're in a coma. We lost our minds. We don't have no memory. That's what's happening. You have to go back and look at, you cannot overlook that when you hear the word amnesty and asylum. The word asylum is there. Asylum is when a foreign country takes in rebels from another country, or what you call outcasts or refugees, and bring them under their protection. Stick with the word, not this word asylum. They was given asylum through the treaty. The treaty gave them asylum. Then they was taken to be a friend, meaning that the community in them was considered as a friend, and the sovereign acknowledged their right to self-determine among themselves as long as they're in our territory. They had that right. Okay, from there, the treaty was signed, and then now that gave them the authority to ratify the Articles of Confederation, because they couldn't all ratify before then. So they're given permission. Now, when George Washington was appointed by the Congress as the the president of the Confederacy Congress. That's a misnomer. That's not right. The Continental Congress, that's not right. It's the Confederacy Council Congress. He was appointed. What he did was, I think Professor Abdullah elaborated on that about the assessment survey of the Moorish estates. He went back to the crown and the Lord Proprietors, and he wanted to take the people under his presidency back into the colonies. So they need to start a new contract. So they sat down. So the Lord Proprietors had the esquires, same, no different than the charters. The Constitution of the United States of North America, if you read it, the Lord Proprietors are still commanding, delegating authority to Congress, talking about a president. This is delegated, it's coming from the settler or the creator is giving somebody life. They created an instrument. They didn't negotiate this instrument. The Lord Proprietors moved on the esquires to give the vested right to Congress. Same way in the charter, they set it up to Congress. So there's still the sovereign power is in the Lord Proprietors. They never left them, because the one that gave that right can always turn around and take that charter away. And that's what they don't talk about. And remember, once that happened, the Constitution, they became a trust. And everybody under there became a beneficiary, a special needy person under the crown again. The only thing now, it wasn't under the charter, it was under the new charter called Constitution New Trust. Go ahead, Abdullah, you elaborate there?
Let's bring this up to today. Now, in Moroccan Post, one of the things that we do, we look at yesterday's events and analyze them with today's information for tomorrow's news. And in doing so, you said something that was quite parallel for one to look at today. You mentioned the word asylum and you mentioned the word refugee.
Yes.
Now, and you said fleeing. Yes. Now, in doing so, let's take that into consideration. And you said nation.
That's right.
So nation. So let's take that in consideration of what the events are occurring today. Now, in order for someone to be fleeing their nation due to war or conflict, another nation must be able to receive them based off to be able to provide them asylum. So therefore, that is a governmental function. So let's look at the Ukraine conflict that is going on today, where the Ukraine and Russia conflict going on today, where you have the Ukrainians have to flee their area and they're going into another nation area in order to be received as a refugee for the asylum and protection. These principles are not new. So as Shem just showed and demonstrated that the marquees, the subjects, there were subjects to the charter of the crown, they were on the run. They were rebellious. They no longer wanted to be up under the charter of the colony, of the crown. So therefore, they formed their body politics and said, hey, we're going to self-assemble, and we're going to form our body politics, and we don't want to, we do not want to associate with the crown at this moment. So in order to do that, because you got to remember, they were on the, they were here by permission of the charter, so therefore they had to get asylum and protection.
That's right.
So they go to the Lenape Moors for their protection because they are refugees at this time. So Abdullah, elaborate further on that.
Well, let's look at it, take it further about actually what they are there, because they actually were the enemies of the crown at that time.
Yes.
They're rebelling against their mother. So these are English subjects born on Moorish soil in the British Dominion. Their parents, English subjects born on Moorish soil, Moorish Dominion. Grandparents, born on Moorish soil in the British Dominion. We could continue. So this is understanding what their status is today. Now, this false concept that they're sovereign, where does sovereignty come from? How are they sovereign? So we're analyzing this as a jurist. So they're indeed refugees who are enemies against their mother. They're criminals because they revolted against their crown. So therefore, they're criminals and had to be brought in. So we brought in criminals. We gave asylum to criminals. All right. In the eyes of Great Britain, they're criminals. 1778. They're criminals, eyes of Great Britain.
Yes.
We brought in criminals.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So we gave asylum to criminals.
That's right.
Because they say voted against them up. So we got to put the status, put it in context.
Yeah, let's put it in that context. Yes.
That's right. That's right, Professor. That's right.
Now, and also in part one, we also showed where the government trust is the Constitution. Now, let's go to the elements of trust. There's 3 elements of trust. You have what you call the settler, which is also another word for grant. The words are interchangeable. You have the settler, the grantor. Those are interchangeable words. Then you also have the trustee, and you have also the beneficiary. Now let's look at the components of this government trust. The settlers and the drafters are the jurist consultants who created the boundaries and delegation of authority for each branch of government. Those are ones who settled the trust of the Constitution. Now you also have Parliament, which delegated the authority in the Constitution as trustee. So, which means you have to grant, the settlers had to grant something over to the trustee to be able to manage and operate. And doing so, the judiciary are bankers who discharge and settle the disputes, whether they're criminal and civil, on behalf of the trust. Now, the citizens of this trust, they use a French word, which is cessuquet, which is another word for beneficiary. The citizens are the beneficiaries, which are also the term was the subjects. The subjects are the beneficiaries of this trust. Now, the head of states, the executive who operates in the capacity of this co-surety, she or he is in place to enforce the settlers' intent and trustees' policies. You want to go further into that, Shem?
Yes, because when they left the Articles of Confederation and George Washington swayed them to go back to the crown, the thing was about industry, political industry, commerce, money, wealth. They wanted to go back into the colony territory and do export, exchange, bartering as usual. Washington, and they met with the Crown's delegation, thought they esquires, and they drafted in the lower proprietors, and they agreed to draft a constitution. Now you notice that they this is the cover up. Now they say that the delegates from Virginia, the delegates from Pennsylvania, and all of these men was delegated authority from the lower proprietors. So the esquires wrote the intent, and they just vote on it. But the intent was written by the settler, the lower proprietors, and the Crown. That's all that matter. And Congress is the one that has the vested power, not the people, not the courts, not the president. It's in Congress. Just like under the colonies, the lower proprietors gave the executive authority to the Congress, and they appointed also the governors, and some of them act as judges and commissioners themselves. So you have to go back and read this. So all they was doing was restructuring, revising the new charter, which is the United States Constitution of North America. Now, if someone is a settler and give you the vested power, like right now today, everybody keep thinking that the president of the United States is elected by the people. They're not. The president of the United States is still appointed like under the colony charters. They was appointed by the lower proprietors. Now, under the Articles of Confederation, that power was transferred. I mean, Indianapolis allowed them to create the Confederation. That power was given by Congress to elect the president, none of the people. See, and then when they went back to create the new charter, that still was invested in Congress. Congress got the inherent right.
The electoral
Powers.
college. Electoral college, which is the electoral college is those who are they are appointed by Congress. The members of the electoral Congress is appointed by Congress. So we're looking at the same operation under the Articles of Confederation. So you have in Congress assembled.
Yep.
You have United States in Congress assembled. Styled. This should be styled as United States of America. And then under the Articles of Confederation, they were independent, and they'll have its independent, separate, sovereign states, namely, and all 13 are named. All right. So under the Articles of Confederation, it's the same. Let's look at it. Let's parallel this now. Same operation. Vested in Congress, United States in Congress assembled. So we the people of the United States, that's that United States in Congress assembled. All right. What are you talking about, Abdullah? We mentioned Shem mentioned vested in Congress. Let's look at that. Let's analyze that. The Electoral College appointed by Congress. One. Who nominates the judges, Supreme Court judges? The president not appoints, but who confirms?
Congress.
So Congress to still make the decision.
Yeah, so the decision is still in the parliament. Yes.
Is that right? So, all right. So now we have, so look what's going on here. The people's, so you have this electoral college. You have this popular vote. The electoral Congress decides. They're the ultimate decision maker.
That's right.
The electoral college, which is appointed by Congress. There was 5 times where the popular vote, and our last one is Al Gore. Al Gore was the last one where Al Gore won the popular vote. The Electoral Congress chose George Bush Jr. That happened 5 times, but it's still most, and so in the other times, the Electoral College goes with the popular vote, but it's still in the hands of the Electoral College.
That's right.
It's
Absolutely.
still, the key is, it's still in the hands of
Absolutely.
the Electoral College.
Absolutely. Do
Keep
not
that in
relinquish
mind.
control.
And elaborate to look back what Professor Abdullah is saying. You have to understand contract law. We taught this. Under the original Jubilee, there was only 13 signatures of 13 new created states. They are the original, that's the Electoral College. They are the original signers of that Constitution. The other ones came in as a grant. They send a constitution, did a survey, drew up a map of a political jurisdiction. They send it up to Congress. The electoral Congress decided to make them a state in the union.
True.
So you see the power there?
That's in the
Contract law.
Mhm.
Yes.
Now we're going to get into that because on part two, let's look at the British moves and the creation of the United States. Now, part two, we talked about the creation of the European newly created states, the counties, the towns, the boroughs, municipalities. Now, this consists of 4 elements: population, constitution, number 1, population. Number 2, constitutions and charters of the newly created states, counties, cities, municipalities, towns, townships, and boroughs. Number 3 is a survey. Number 4, architectural drawings and engineering development plan. Want to go into that?
Yes. Anytime when United States was allowed to go back into the colony territory, United States, they never had title to nothing. See, this was the Supreme Court was title when it said the title is not in state. What it's saying, the title never was in the new created state that under the 1783 treaty, these new created states, colonies that was going to come in the colony territory. Title is in the law proprietors in the colony charters. That's title. The grants, the letter of grants. That's title. The crown, the privacy council. That's title. Territorial title is in the indigenous people. That's over the land. Conquest, dominion title is through the crown.
Now, are you comparing the difference between allodial title and fee simple title?
Allodial title is an agriculture title.
Okay.
Over the land. That's agriculture.
Okay.
So anybody wants to say we hear the word allodial title, you're talking about the earth, the agriculture, the water.
Okay.
So when a person or a jurist do a deed, a description, he's going to do an agriculture deed, and by treaty, that's territorial sovereignty. That's allodial. Fee simple is one that would say like you could use the land because the law proprietors or the ones given the colony charters by the crown allow you to use the land. So that's the difference. Or letter of grant, that's different. But a allodial title is a agriculture title that's dealing with the land and water. That's that's called a deed by treaty. That's why jurists, if he do anything in a Morris jurist, if he operating a government, a province, a region, when he goes to do a deed, he does not do any deed, simple free deed. He does a allodial title deed. It's called an agriculture deed, and that deed is done by treaty. And when that deed is done, he bundles it up, takes it to the National Department, gets the stamp. Then a copy goes to the registry, the county or registry, the de facto government, wherever it may be, registry. That lets them know that the people that's occupying the land is the indigenous to the land, they're native. That's the difference there. They can't steal your wealth or anything.
Now, we also discussed in part 2 the Articles of Association, as you alluded to earlier, of October the 20th, 1774. Let's just go over some of the things within this Article of Association so we can kind of bring it back full swing before we get into part 3. Now, it reads that we, His Majesty's most loyal subjects, it say the delegates of the several colonies of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the 3 lower counties of Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex on Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, deputy to represent them in a continental Congress, when we're going to go into that, held in the city of Philadelphia on the 5th day of September, 1774. Now, I want to point at the area that say the 3 lower counties of Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex on Delaware. Because if you read the Articles of Association, one would wonder why it does not just say Delaware. Now, if you look at the first original charter of the Bureau of Wilmington, it will show in there that the Delaware charter has already been granted to William Penn. So Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex on Delaware was an incorporation into a existing charter that William Penn held. Shem, you want to go into that a little bit more in detail about the William Penn charter?
Yes, it's like when William Penn was given the grant, or letter patent. Also, the Penn family gave out letters of grants to others. They did. They gave out letters of grants. These letters of grants allow them to form communities, municipalities around them. When this happened here, they can't operate independent. They have to go back into the mother, which is the Delaware Charter. That's where it came from. That's where all this derived from. Not from the letters of grant. The letters of grant came from the Lord Proprietor, William Penn, and his prosperity, his family. They gave letters out. So them letters, now you can't take them letters and say, I'm coming together outside where the grant comes from. You can't do that. That's not in trust law. You can't do that. Nobody in the trust can do anything unless the trustee. That's what the trustee is there for. So the beneficiaries, you might say, well, the beneficiaries can override the trustees. You talk about a statutory trust. That's not how it's set up in original trust. It's not true, because the lords and the nobles are the ones that have the control of the wealth. They create the trust, and sometimes they appoint themselves as the trustee. They'll give their children the beneficiary. They will never put in a trust that the beneficiaries can rise up and take power from. That's not even any contract law. That don't make sense. So you see, they get a misnomer and put this out here. Oh, the beneficiary can step. No, they can't. I said they can't. I said they can't do that. They only can get something.
That's a violation of trust law.
They only can get what is granted to them in the trust. Once the trustee died, then it's instructions how the beneficiaries ascend to the trustee position, because they're the heirs. So they ascend to protect the assets. But the settler or the exchanger, a lot of times, is the one to appoint themselves as the trustee. And it go in a real trust goes into the lineage of the trust, the mother, and if it goes to the father and mother lineage, it goes back hundreds of years. That's a real trust. Then it has an indenture, which is the deed titled all the property of the trust, descriptions, land, wealth. So we've been taught by trust law. Read the United States Constitution, and you can see it clear as day. Every time when they made it, they had to make an amendment.
Well, let's stop here. Yeah. Are we going to stop with well, they can't see it clear as day. That's because they don't. Most people don't know trust law. All right. Now you can see it clear as day, of course. Yes. And absolutely. All right. The clearest day seeing it is knowledge. What makes you see it clear as day is having the knowledge. That's how you see it clear as day. Without the knowledge, they won't see it clear as day.
Like the Torah. The Torah is a trust. The Torah is a trust. Mm-hmm. What you talking about, Shem? It got the ordinance. It got statutes. It got how land is to be distributed from the house. Everything is broken down in there. The inheritance, who enjoy the inheritance, how the priests get their inheritance, why they put money in the storehouse and groceries and agriculture in the storehouse. That's a trust. That's matter of fact. A lot of these old ancient Sumerian texts and stuff like that, that is the real way to see a trust. Because you see how they go back and take care of the people, how they put and who they entrusted with that. The trustees, the settler and the trustees, or the exchanger or the truster. Now you notice he go fraud. Grantor, grantee, what you just did. Fee simple. That's dealing with fee simple. That's not dealing with lowly. Trustees. Fee simple. Grantee, what is a grantor? A donor. You are donating your whole estate away. Absolutely. And the person that's receiving it don't have no authority to own it. Just grantee. Look them up.
Now, are the Moors beneficiaries to the United States Constitution?
The Lords, you mean the Lord? No.
The questions are more.
My question, do I need to repeat that again?
No, absolutely not. And I'm going to explain why. Mm-hmm. When the treaty is written by the Moors, they were written in Arabic. The Constitution wasn't written in Arabic. There was no day or bay. We the days and bays of the so-and-so. It said we, people of the United States. Abdullah broke that down. Simple as it's principle, it's norm. There's no day obey. There's no wazir, caliph, sharif. Now I'm saying there's no area court, lord, fire council. I'm talking about the grammar when the contract. So therefore, they had nothing to do the drafting of that document because they was not subjects of the crown. There wasn't lord proprietors. There was a allodial title holder, agriculture, territorial owners of the land. So they wouldn't write a constitution and give somebody sovereignty over them. Or how they going to write a constitution and make statements in the Constitution, we the people of the United States. Now, you have to say that they're subjects of the crown. The Moors, it's not. There's no way you can prove the Moors are subjects of the crown. So that's a misnomer. So you got to look at the document. So when you hear somebody say, well, the Moors wrote that, then okay, the Moors spoke Arabic, Araming. Let's go to the language they spoke because they wrote the treaties. The treaties are written in Arabic. The Moors treaties are written in Arabic. Come on now.
That's true.
The Constitution is not written in Arabic. There's no days, no caliphs, no wazirs, no sheiks or sheikas. There's nothing there. So how can a Moor be we the people of the United States? You have to stop right there and ask yourself, when somebody say that, stop them right there and reason with them. Say, please show me that a Moor is the people of the United States. They have to prove that. Make them prove that. They have to prove it. That's right there. Make it prove that going back to the 15th, 14th century, going back to even Prophet Muhammad, that a Moor was a citizen of a European nation. You have to prove it. So let's go back to 17, 8, 9b. You can't prove it. That's the reason why I say go back. Now let's go up to the 1100s, the 10th century. See, let's go up. See, keep going up. There's nothing there. No. Now, you do see that the Spanish took the Moors and put the Moors under the title of Negro, but not United States citizens.
That's subjugation.
Yes, it is.
Yes, that's not citizenry. That is subjugation. 1563. Philip II issued a Spanish bulla subjugating the Moors under Spanish rule. Moors were forbidden to wear their cultural headdress, turban and feathers. The children were taken away and educated by the priests and taught Latin. Latin was forced on us. I'm saying again, Latin, they took the children away. The children, Moorish children, were placed in orphanages.
Yes.
And taught by the priesthood. Latin was forced on us. We spoke Arabic. Our rulership in Phoenicia, we spoke Arabic. We wrote in Arabic. Cordoba, one of the largest libraries during the 800s, 900s, housed over 600,000 manuscripts, all written in Arabic. You have what's called the Society of Timbuktu. That's a restoration society. Google it. Society of Timbuktu. That's a restoration society. These books were held in kens for 500 years. Most of the books written in Arabic, medical books, astronomy books, Bible, Qurans, botany books, math books. Google Society of Timbuktu, a restoration society, written in Arabic. We got to go to the facts. Let's deal with the facts. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Exhibits. Hit them with exhibits. Exhibits. Right. All right. Documentary evidence.
Yes.
As we begin as we teach the people, it's too much of, I do not want people to say Abdullah Bey say anything. Abdullah Bey don't present, or Tamara said, or Shem said. They presented documentary evidence, examined the evidence. Let's use epistemology. Epistemology is a branch in philosophy of how one knows knowledge. The scientific method is part of epistemological studies, how one knows knowledge. So we have the scientific method. So I'll give an example of epistemology.
That's right.
You have the scientific method. You formulate a hypothesis, assumptions and hypotheses. You construct an experimental design. You have qualitative analysis, and qualitative and quantitative analysis, quantitative and qualitative research or design. All right. So we're looking at how one knows knowledge, how one gathers information using a systematic approach or quantitative and qualitative approach of gathering information, of charting, of note-taking, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. All right, so we take you're going to form experimental design to test your hypothesis or hypotheses.
That's right.
So you see whether it's reliable or valid. So we have to understand. So we get into what's it called? It's called epistemology, how one knows knowledge. You also have epistemology, ontology, ontology is another branch in philosophy. You have political philosophy, axiology. So yeah, these are different branches of philosophy. Philosophy is very important because how critical thinking, analysis, and reasoning, how one gathers, like we can spend, and I like to do this one day. I do this one day. Oh boy. Where we spend a whole 2 hours.
Have a hypothesis
On what is a fact.
Yes.
We did this in the hooked on getting to the roots 201 or 301.
201.
In the summer. So Saturday class, week 7 class. Then was the last course, week 7. And I wrote on the board, what is a fact? And it went around for about 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
Great analysis.
Great dialogue.
And great dialogue that we need more of that. We need to stimulate more of that. You talk about epistemology, which is a systematic way of thinking.
As opposed to saying what someone said.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that we're going to do more of that. We have to employ epistemology.
Mm-hmm. Must do. And as we analyze also the Declaration of Independence of 1776, now what is the Declaration of Independence? A, is it an English royal charter? B, is it an English land grant? C, is it an English royal letter patent? D, is it a complaint letter drafted by English subjects? E, an ecclesiastical decree from the Pope, whom operate as a seer. What is the Declaration of Independence?
Complaint letter.
That's right. It's them coming together.
Who is them?
The
English subjects.
English subjects. That's called the renegades. I call them renegades and refugees.
English subjects who are renegades.
Who are renegades.
They're English subjects first.
They decided
renegades
to do a sworn statement among themselves. They claimed among themselves the right to independence and self-determination. That's among themselves. Now, although you do that among yourself, but you don't have the delegated authority. There's nothing vested in you to do that and to ratify that. So it's just a form of declaration among the English subjects complaining to the crown that they want their right to self-determine. That's it. Nothing no more, nothing less. That's it. It doesn't carry any weight in the colony territory. It doesn't carry any weight as a grant holder, a law proprietor, a colony charter, or a patent given. Doesn't carry any weight of that. None of that at all.
Now you mentioned a great point that they had no vested power. Their status. It's look like that. The status.
Yep.
I think that so that we get away from that in the schools and their status. And so this misconcept that's taught in the textbooks that they changed their status. They're now sovereigns. Like they went from subjects of the British crown to sovereigns. That they're no longer subjects. They're no longer subjects. They're now sovereigns. Let's see if that's well settled. Let's go back. Can we go back 10,000 years? We've got 10,000 years, 5,000. That's All right. I'm going to decide now. I'm no longer a subject. My mother born as a subject, grandmother, great grandmother, great great grandmother, great great grandmother, great 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 great. Now I'm a sovereign. Is that well settled?
Nope.
Not at all.
I'm now a knight. I'm now a king or a queen or a duke or earl. I mean, that we now have the same status. We once, as they say, once subjects, now have the same status as the kings and queens and dukes and earls and marquises and count and countess.
Yep.
You know, so then they say that the sovereignty is the people. The sovereignty is in the citizens of the United States. How? I think that's why these principles are so important. Because they're just telling we're told anything.
And another thing to back up Abdullah, Professor Abdullah is saying is that the moment Lincoln had assassinated and Congress went back in session.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, you
yet.
done ran all the way
Yes.
down the road.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna get there.
Now we still in part two.
I know.
Now
Yeah.
we still now we're gonna have
Yeah,
to
we
bring
had to
this
count
full
the bag.
swing about part two.
Yeah, we go.
Now, one of the things we're gonna move up a couple of slides. We're gonna look at a thought-provoking question for today's information on part two. Now, one of the things we're going to question is why is the word ceded not in the peace treaty between Great Britain and the United States of 1783, but is in the peace treaty between Great Britain and France of 1783. Now we're going to analyze the word ceded, and we're going to also analyze the word relinquish, and then that will help tie in to what we're going to get into on part three. We're going to make the next move on part three and get into the creation of the new states being performed, that was being formed on the United States. Abdullah, you want to get into that? Analyze the words ceded and relinquish.
Yes. So this is important to analyze both documents: the Treaty of Peace between Great Britain and France, 1763. The Treaty of Peace, definitive Treaty of Peace between Great Britain and the United States. The word cede is in the 1763 treaty between France and United States. I mean, France and Great Britain, the word cede. But it does not appear in. Now the question is, why didn't King George III? We have Huntley, and they met in France in 1762. Huntley represented the crown. All right. Hartley represented the crown. They met in France. That was negotiated throughout 1782. Sorry, 1782. That's the British subjects, and the representative of King George III. All right, met in France in 1762. The treaty was the terms and conditions of the treaty was negotiated in France. That's why it's called the Treaty of Paris, 1783. Why didn't the Privy Council and King George III agree to have the word cede in that treaty? Why did the King of France in 1762 agree to put cede in the 1763 treaty between France and Great Britain? What was going on? Now, you have the Treaty of Utrecht. Now, the Treaty of Utrecht, which ended the War of Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1713, that ended the War of Spanish Succession. During that, France ceded Gibraltar to Great Britain. This is Great Britain was able to gain control of, or Spain ceded Gibraltar to Great Britain. And Great Britain was able to gain a lot of other areas of territory under that Treaty of Utrecht. So this leads up to this Treaty of Paris. between Great Britain and France. So why would a king agree to have the word cede in the treaty?
That's right.
And why didn't King George III agree to have the word cede? It's the word relinquish. Relinquish. Doesn't grant. So King George III and the Privy Council didn't grant anything. Didn't cede anything. So relinquish, which is all about agreeing to remove the troops to maintain the fiduciary control. So in negotiating, you have the personal rights that's vested in the treaties. Because the Society versus New Haven. Society versus New Haven, that's the Society of the Propagated Faith, and versus New Haven, 1823. That's the United States Supreme Court case that raised the question on, did the Revolutionary War extinguish rights before? All right, so this, because the statement, the prevailing misconception is Great Britain has no interest anymore. The Revolutionary War, Great Britain lost. Great Britain has no interest, none at all. None of the charters, the letter of patents, the land grants, none of that is enforceable today. Is this the United States Constitution, United States Constitution, United States Constitution, United States Constitution, United States Constitution. That's the only ruling instrument. The charters are no good no more. The letter of patents are no good anymore. Let's put the statement out there. That's out there. It's out there. So the defense, this is defense for New Haven in the Society versus New Haven case in 1823, raised the issue. The Revolutionary War extinguished all that. That was the defense. And you see throughout the case, the issue of forfeiture and confiscation comes up. Yep. Forfeiture and confiscation. So this major case puts that to rest. The Revolutionary War did not extinguish any rights that was prior to the Revolutionary War. So rights that existed, that were held prior to the Revolutionary War, still remained. There was no extinguishment. The war doesn't extinguish the rights. The personal rights that's vested in the treaties. Dartford versus Woodard. And we'll get into that a little later on. We get into these treaty cases. All right?
Yes.
Let me ask you, okay. So let me ask you a question. Okay, relinquish. Relinquish is a transfer of the jurisdictional. Am I saying that correct? Am I right? Okay, so
if the Great Britain agreed to remove the troops, the rights.
Let me read this.
That's vested in the charters.
Let me read this right here. Yes. Let me read this. It say the word relinquish in Article 1 of the definitive peace treaty between Great Britain and the United States of 1783, also known as the Treaty of Paris of 1783. It say His Britannic Majesty acknowledges the said United States, viz. New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, and Providence plantations. Okay, that's one word. Rhode Islands and Providence plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia to be free, sovereign, and independent states, that he treats with them as such, and for himself, his heirs and successors, relinquishes all claims to the government for property and territorial rights of the same in every part thereof. Summarize that for me.
All right, let's analyze that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go first, Shem?
Yes.
I'll go right up.
The colony charters was given domain over the Lord proprietors had over that. The power that the Lord proprietors exercise in appointing the military, the governor, the parliament, the judiciary, the commission, that all that they no longer exercise in the territory that His Majesty, the political jurisdiction, His Majesty agreed to allow the United States to function as an independent state community. They wouldn't come in and molest their government. That's all that means. They wouldn't come in and say, hey, you can't elect nobody. You can't elect no governors. They wouldn't interfere in the election process. They wouldn't interfere how they elect, appoint their government cabinet. That's just dealing with political affairs. But the private rights that the Lord proprietors had, that still remain in check. We talk about a political
Treaties, yes.
status, and then we're dealing with what you call economics, commerce. That's different. They just not going to do what they was doing before. Appointing them, firing them, stepping in themselves, making decisions, altering everything. They let them have a complete independence over their whole political arena, their political affairs among themselves. That's all that was. They didn't have title or nothing. That means y'all do political affairs among yourself. Y'all elect your officials. Y'all have your own judicial matter to settle your own disputes. Y'all have a right to defend yourself. Y'all have a right to a militia. They let them have that. Yes, they did. The Lord proprietors let them have that to defend themselves. But that that's just political. That's political. That's not economics and commerce. The economics and commerce still remain in control of the Lord proprietors. It's still theirs. That's why every time you see someone come up with a letter of grant or a relying on an old charter colony, they're winning the Supreme Court. They win. They say the
you'll
state,
see these in these treaty cases
yes,
that we have these treaty cases. What he's saying, all right, is that can be proven in the treaty cases. The treaty cases that were decided in the United States Supreme Court. Everything we're saying can be supported and substantiated.
Yes, treaty cases are next series, and we're going to tie it all in the next series.
You
Treaty
have,
cases.
yes, you have, Society versus New Haven. You have what was it? The 1796 case, Ware versus Hilton. Ware versus Hilton, which was actually the first case that was adjudicated. That adjudicated the Treaty of Paris between Great Britain and the United States. That's Ware versus Hilton, 1796. Society versus New Haven, 1823. You have Dartmouth College versus Woodward, and a host of other treaties that we'll deal with in the next series.
Yes,
right?
we're going to deal with that in the next series. But before we make this next chess move, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and pay our sponsors, Respect Academy of Providence.
Are you a deep diver for knowledge? Do you like to explore historical content of language, grammar, and law? Well, Academy of Providence is a unique certificate-based virtual learning institution with an aim to draw out a person's innate talents and abilities by imparting the knowledge of languages, epistemology, scientific reasoning, jurisprudence, positive law, history, literature, rhetoric, and more. The channels through which those abilities would flourish and serve the communities as well as the nation. Our goal is to help you dive deep into critical analysis, thinking and reasoning of these areas towards becoming philosophers or humanity of learning or humanity of science, which creates society's great artists, painters, musicians, jurists, doctors, astronomers, biologists, engineers, cartographers, surveyors, photographers, chemists, herbalists, entrepreneurs, computer scientists, teachers, politicians, and statesmen. So, if you are determined and willing to go beyond, Academy of Providence is the perfect place for you. For more information, visit our website, www.academyofprovidence.org.
All right, and we're back. Thank you for tuning in once again to Moroccan Post, where we analyze yesterday's events for today's information and tomorrow's news. Now we're going to go ahead and make this next chess move, and we're going to get into part 3 of July 1887, United States and Congress accepting new states. Now, as we analyze here, we're going to look at statehood within the United States Constitution. We're going to deal with Article 4, Section 3, Clause 1 that authorizes the United States Congress to admit new states into the Union. Also, the admission to the Union Clause of the United States Constitution, also called the New State Clause. You want to elaborate on that, Abdullah?
All right, yes. Now, I've got to go back to the treaty because we have to be using the treaty between Great Britain and United States as our guide here.
Mm-hmm.
In 1787, when the British subjects who were in rebellion, they already signed the Treaty of Paris, 1783. So now we're in 1787. Now they're drafting. This article was drafted into the Constitution. New states based on what? All right. What came about that allowed them to draft this article into the Constitution? What were they looking to? What authorized them to do that? The treaty between Great Britain and United States. Like you're going to draft admitting new states. So what was going on? You had the Treaty of Paris, 1783, between Great Britain and the United States, where now you have the Northwest Ordinance, or Northwest Territory, that was, now they were allowed to operate not only in the 13 colony, the British Dominion, but also in the area where France once had, political, territorial, occupational control. All right, France. There were French subjects there. French subjects were still living there. So 1763, between the treaty between France and Great Britain, the French subjects didn't go back to France. The French subjects still remained. So you used to have French subjects there as well. So what this would allow them is that Treaty of Paris between Great Britain and United States. That's what they're operating on. That's what allows them to draft this article. We got to make the connection. We can't look at the United States Constitution outside of the Treaty of Paris, the treaty between Great Britain and United States. This is thinking like a jurist. How were they able to draft that? In July of 1787, that's when they decided to take use the land and separate it into states. That was decided during the Constitutional Convention, not at the Constitutional Convention, because you remember they were still operating under the Articles of Confederation. Because they didn't dissolve the Articles of Confederation and then start operating, and then was at the Constitutional Convention. No, the Articles of Confederation was still operative all throughout 1787, all during the Constitutional Convention, 1787. So during the ratification, so 1787 from March to September 1787, that's the period of the United States Constitutional Convention. They were operating under the Articles of Confederation. During the ratification period, that's from September 1787 to June 1788. So now you're talking about ratification. So all the states had to go back and ratify it. They were still operating under the Articles of Confederation, all up until March 1789. So now you're talking about the transfer from the Articles of Confederation to the United States Constitution, but the principles the United States and Congress assembled still existed. So the structure was it's there within as I mentioned before, about the Congress. Congress appointed So you look at the appointment of the president. It was the president of the Continental Congress under the Articles of Confederation. President of the Continental Congress. It's still president of the Continent. It's still president of the Congress.
Absolutely.
I said something.
I was hoping you was going to catch
please.
that.
I said something. I want y'all to analyze it.
Yes.
It is still president of the Congress. Joe Biden is president of the Congress. No, he's not. Electoral College.
Yeah, absolutely.
Electoral College. Joe Biden is president of the Congress. Meaning that who appoints the Electoral College? Congress does. So therefore, Congress is the one that decides on the presidency. It's still with Congress.
Yes.
As it was with the Article of Confederation, they're hiding it. It's still there.
And this is how things must be analyzed. Now, if we also look at the Northwest Territory of 1787, let's look beyond that to the west of the Appalachian and in the area known as the Great Lakes. And you will see from Ohio, this when they started carving out the different territorial jurisdictional area within those Great Lakes areas. In Ohio, they created the jurisdiction of Ohio in 1803. Indiana, 1816. Illinois, 1817. Michigan, 1837. Wisconsin, 1848. And Minnesota, 1858. Now, the remainder of Minnesota was added in 1818 through conventions as well as the Louisiana Purchase. So we're not talking about land, territory. We're talking about jurisdiction, occupation, being granted the jurisdiction to occupy the territorial area. Now, as we look at the Northwest Territory, formerly an ordinance for the government of the territory of the United States, northwest of the Ohio River. Now, the Act of Congress enacted on July the 13th, 1787 was an organic act of the Congress of the Confederation of the United States. It created the Northwest Territory. The Northwest Territory is an organized, incorporated territory from lands beyond the Appalachian Mountains. You got to remember, the 13 colonies were to the east of the Appalachian Mountain to the river. So that was the meat and bounds in which the surveys had for the 13 colonies. They were only occupying the area from the jurisdictional area, what is known today as Maine, to then you have the annexation of Florida, but that was all to the east of the Appalachian. The Northwest Territory brought in the territory area to the west of the Appalachian Mountains. So now their expansion, this is what you call also the Western expansion that was taking place throughout this period. Now, between British North America and the Great Lakes to the north and to the Ohio River to the south, the upper Mississippi River formed the territory's western boundaries. Pennsylvania was the eastern boundary. So these are the markers they're utilizing. You have to remember they're utilizing the rivers and the mountains to carve out the jurisdictional boundaries, because that is the territory that exists in order to create the jurisdictional control. Now, also, if we look at the excerpt of the Treaty of Paris of 1783 and the Northwest Territory, it say, "In that all disputes which might arise in future of the subject of the boundaries of the said United States may be prevented, it is hereby agreed and declared that the following are and shall be their boundaries, viz., the angle which is formed by a line drawn due north from the source of St. Croix River to the highlands, and along the said highlands which divided those rivers that emptied themselves into the river St. Lawrence, from those which fall into the Atlantic Ocean to the northwesternmost head of the Connecticut River, thence down along the middle of that river to the 45th degree of north latitude, form this by a line due west of said latitude until it strikes the river Iroquois or Cataract. Now, if you look at a map, if you're traveling, I know a lot of people, we have this GPS system now, digitized. Now, if you go to one of the truck stops or rest area and you get a map, you open the map up and you take a good look at that map, you will see the blue lines. Some of them are blue, some of them are white. You will see the jurisdictional carvings out and how they draw them along the mountains. You'll see it's all drawn between the mountains and the rivers, or the mountains and the ocean. That's how they make their carving and distinction of territory. It's still there. It's still defined in the maps. You will see the jurisdiction controlled in those maps that you will see today. It's just that we've gotten away from looking at them. If you go back and look at those maps, you'll be able to see that those jurisdiction in which they outlined for themselves, and how they have the control of that territorial area as of today. Now, Abdullah, you want to go into the more of the information of the Treaty of Paris?
Yeah, so we now, as Tamara read, that the jurisdiction is outlined in the treaties. They can't go beyond what's granted in the treaties. If there is a dispute between New Jersey State, a land dispute between New Jersey State and New York State jurisdiction, the jurisdiction of New York, the jurisdiction of, we're not New York Colony. That's because New York Colony, that authority still exists. That's because the charter. They go to the charter. The land boundaries were described in the charters, royal land grants. King James and King George I and King Charles I, King Charles II, they have to go to the charters. And that's exactly what you see in these cases, that they're looking to the charters. So the personal rights that's vested in the charters and land grants have not been extinguished. That's what Society versus New Haven, the Revolutionary War did not extinguish that. So we look to the treaties. So look at the treaties. Then you see these land boundary maps, these European occupational land boundary maps that's surveying Moorish land. You know, see during the 1600s, 1700s, you see the different, because now you're talking about wars, all right? You have, the Pontiac War between France and Great Britain. So now you have a change. So now you see, from 1656 to 1763, you see France. From 16, so Canada, that's France. You see France. Now it's Great Britain. That's the treaty. The treaty between Great Britain and France outlines the boundaries. France is ceding. Now, the rights of the French subjects why is French still spoken in Canada? Because that's protected in the treaty. That's protected in the 1763 treaty between Great Britain and France. That's why. Mm-hmm. These are French subjects. They didn't go back. They didn't go to France. They remained. So the treaty outlined. Now you have, let's look at just focusing, looking at treaty, the language in the treaties, and that the survey is outlined in the treaties. Meaning the map doesn't supersede the treaty. The survey is based on the language in the treaty. So I try to make that connection there, because we'll see will see the maps. Well, people look up, they'll Google, the different maps and, France and, they'll see all the Great Britain and, Spain and so forth. Let's look at the treaties.
Yep.
Let's use the reference of the treaties. So this United States Constitution, is the supreme authority. Absolutely not. All right.
Now, Shem, I want to throw you a curveball here. I want to throw a curveball in this because as we look at what the colonizers has taken their nice little pencils and made their little carvings, their nice little circles, their nice little squares, and carved out the little territory of their jurisdiction. Now, I want to throw a curveball regarding allodial status in what our people were. We were here, we laid down, we had not civilizations, we had culture, we had heritage, we had governance that took place. Now is one coming to the knowledge and looking to establish and be able to claim the allodial autochthonous status of the area in which their ancestors carved out. And even as to now, as people purchasing homes and carving out the area in which to plant roots and things of that nature. Can you go into the claim of allodial status and being able to identify the carving out of your ancestry land, the carving out of the land you possess for the allodial claim? I just want to throw a curveball your way into that.
Okay, allodial title is something that's inherited to kinship, descent. It doesn't come from a crown. It comes from a seer or prophetess.
You might.
That a prophetess or seer, that the power of the unseen world made a determination of the earth they own. This is going to own my earth. These are I'm going to convey. These are conveyance that's given from the unseen world divinity. Once that is given, coming to the nature of man and woman, is forever theirs, and they descend. No king or no emperor could take that conveyance away. You have to go back to the old seers and prophetess. When they spoke about someone coming to take the land, and the land is being given to them forever as a conveyance, that's a allodial title. Because it's not them about just going on the earth walking, and I see this land, I claim it. It's not that way. It's that they received the cosmic record, the revelation that told to them, these people own this land. That's a allodial claim. It comes from the unseen world, given to it, coming in nature as a bull. That's the Pope get the thing called a pistol, a bull. What is he saying? He's saying that the power of the unseen world, the galactic power, is given to me. That's right, authority on earth. To whatever I bound on earth, I bound on earth. Whatever I loose on earth, I loose. Whatever I conquer. Whatever I give a grant to or land conveyance, I can give it. That's the power of the seer. The Pope has it on his mitre, and nobody pays attention. So the allodial title is something given to your descent. It's handed through the house to your mother, to your father lineage. It was spoken by a seer. No one can overwrite that. So you have to go back and say, whoa, wait a minute. I'm making a descent as a native Moor to my land based on the seer conveyance. That's a different story. Because remember, the Pope makes his claim on that same principle. And the crowns follow that principle. Yes, they do. Look at what they say, defender of the faith, the Christian faith, defender of the faith. Come on now. What is this end they saying? Most Christian king, defender of the faith. What are you talking about? Look, read this stuff.
Explain more to it.
Most Christian king. You know what he's saying? He's anointed. He has an anointing to do what he's doing. He's defender of the faith. What faith is he defending? Our Moorish culture. And he hiding, doing it right under our face.
All right, let me go into Christian, the word, the etymology of the word Christian, because he's on to that. Let's make this connection here. So the defender of the Christian faith. Looking at the anointment, the word anoint means smear with oil. Right. So the oil that's secreted in the pineal gland. All right, so this is what we're talking about. So we're talking about, once again, seership. defender of the Christian faith,
That's right.
the seership,
That's right.
all right, the anointment. He wears our mitre, all right, in the form of a fish, fertility. That's ties to the matrilineal principles, fertility, all right, the mitre, the cross keys of Chaldea, all right, we have the cross keys, all right, we have the earth cross, that's your 4 seasons, and you have the galactic cross. So they have the celestial equator and the galactic equator intersects every 6,500 years. That causes calamity, catastrophe. So the seer, all right, the holder of the Chaldean cross, or the cross of Chaldean, the staff with the two, the pine cone and the
right.
2 intertwined snakes ascending
right.
the pine cone.
That's right.
Once again, the Christian faith, pine cone, pineal gland. They're playing us. We have to reclaim the culture.
That's right.
We have to reclaim the culture.
Absolutely.
That's why they say defenders of the faith, meaning they defending this, meaning that they're making claims on this. The authority to conquest the earth and over dominion comes through that cross. They govern the seasons of growth, economics and commerce industry. Then they're talking about the power of what? Of science. Look at science that evolved so fast, patents and stuff. You have to see what's going on here. And they say this, and the kings say this. So that's not upon them. The anointing is not theirs. Let me say something. Even though they say this is not theirs, they're just making a claim to it.
Let's get into that. Let's get into the defender of the Christian faith. Okay, now if they are defending that which is in nature, which is the Christian faith.
Mhm.
However, you are also taking away the people who are of
No debate there.
right. You know,
Well,
I'm
that's why
going
they
with
say
it.
defending.
Hold on.
Against us.
No. But you have now placed all the autochthonous people in a category
Yeah.
of non-Christians and claim that the people
true.
of
She's right.
the autochthonous people are barbarous,
True.
pagan,
True.
Muslims. Now we're dealing with the doctrine of discovery and the esoteric arena. We're dealing with that now.
Mhm.
Because how are you to defend the Christian faith if the first maximum law, first in time, first in law, that would mean those people are the true Christians and you're defending their faith for them, but now
She makes a good point.
you have now placed them and you have changed it. You did a trade in places role and say, oh, those people are no longer, they're not Christians. They are all barbarous nations. They are
Good point.
Muslims
Excellent.
nations. So how are they defending the
So,
Christian
let me
faith?
address that.
Yes.
Let me address that.
We're doing a hypothesis
Yeah,
statement
that's
on
right.
that.
All right.
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Excellent point. So in truth, they're not. In truth,
That's right.
in original construction,
That's right.
in
They're not
the original
anointed.
etymology, the original application,
That's
in
right.
truth, they're not defending the Christian faith.
That's right.
That's what Tamara's going. They're not. We know what they're singing.
Mhm.
We know what they're writing. They're not defending the Christian faith. What Tamara is alluding to, the only way to defend the Christian faith is to defend us. This is what she's saying.
Hello, somebody.
The only way that they can defend the Christian faith, if they defend us, return the land, everything, protect, defend us, help train us in military, could train us in net military force, defend us. That's the only way in truth, in the truth of the word, that they could defend the Christian faith. That's where she's going. I know where she's
Absolutely.
going. I know where she's going.
Absolutely.
That is powerful. That is powerful. That is powerful.
And when they use it, Tamara, they use it in a sense that they're defending
constructive sense.
Right.
Constructive.
They're using it in a constructive.
capitalism.
They're using.
I want to read this. I'm glad you said that.
But they're using the word Christian. No, that's
Mhm.
no, that's stop. Let's
yeah,
stop
yeah,
there
yeah.
for-
You know where I'm
let's
going.
stop there for a minute.
Uh-huh.
I want past that. Right.
Mhm.
You substitute it. Don't substitute the word.
Exactly.
You're substituting the word. No,
Mhm.
the word that they use
It's
is
Christian.
They're not-
Yes.
they don't say defender. We got to stay with the word that's used.
Okay.
Let's not add another word. What's the word that's used? The claim, the defenders of the Christian faith. It's not Catholicism. The word that they use is Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stay with that. We're not going to add another word. We're going to stay with the word that they use, that they say out their mouth, that they have, the Knights Orders, Knights Templars, Knights of Round Table, Knights of Order of Christ, the Knights of St. John's, the Knights of Calatrava, the Knights of Malta, the Knights of Rose. What they say, they make the claim that they're
Christian faith.
defenders of the Christian faith.
That's true.
That stay with their word.
That's right. They say that. Absolutely.
Now let's read this article. It say the bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians, it's not on that, Terrence, I'm just reading from somewhere else. The bull stated that any land not inhabited by Christians, now let's pay attention to these words, was available to be discovered, claimed and exploited by Christian rulers, and declared that the Catholic Church and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread, that the heath of souls be cared for that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. This doctrine of discovery became the basis of all European claims in the Americas, as well as the foundation for the United States Western expansion. In the U.S. Supreme Court, in the 1823 case, Johnson versus McIntosh, Chief Justice John Marshall's opinion is his opinion, y'all. That's it. In the unanimous decision held that the principle of discovery gave European nations an absolute right to New World lands. In essence, American Indians had only a right of occupancy, which could be abolished. The bull, Inter Caetera, made headlines again throughout the 1990s and the 2000s when many Catholics petitioned Pope John Paul II to formally revoke it and recognize the human rights of indigenous non-Christian peoples. Let's look at that.
Let me look at this. Please hear me out, please.
Remember the word Indian was in it,
Let
not more.
me a minute here. Please hear me out. I want to stay with the culture. Let's stay with the culture here. Please hear me out. Do we really understand this? Do we really, truly understand this?
That's right.
Do we understand the mitre? I think let's stay with the culture for a minute. Do we understand that power? Do we understand the unseen power that they're tapping into? They're tapping into, that's our culture.
Abracadabra.
This is not just symbols, y'all.
Power.
It's not just, they just got the cross and we went on his head. We're talking about what it represents. The unseen power that they're tapping into. They're making that claim. This is because we've been dumbed down and we can't see. Our pineal glands are calcified. That's the true power. The unseen world, that's the true power. They're making a claim to that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. I know people, it's going to take time. I understand. I know it's going to take time to really for them to grasp what I'm saying. It's going to take time. That we have to get to that. When you see the mitre and you see the staff, you see the snake, when you see the cross keys of Chaldea, what does that all mean?
Their exercise of manifested destiny.
The word Christian.
Yes.
The cross, the sunlight stimulates the serotonin and melatonin, activating the neuromelanin, the pineal gland. You have the unseen world, the compass and square with the G in the middle. The G representing geometry. The unseen world, shapeless. And it's manifest. The shapes are manifested. So the genetic code, by using geometry, you tap into the genetic code of the unseen world. That's what that compass and square representing from this level. So you have an esoteric level. You have the level that deals with the mathematics you have, because it's a bow compass, all right, and a plummet square. So you have a bow compass, a plummet square there, but you also have the representation of the geometry in the unseen world. This is what they're using. And I don't expect people, it's going to take time for them to graduate to this. I understand that. I understand that. I can't get you there one night. I understand that.
All right, we're going to look at vindicating the laws of nations and the Treaty of Paris of 1783 with Great Britain. We're going to look at various ways that occurred. Now we're going to look at Alexander Hamilton vindicating the law of nations and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1783 with Great Britain. Also, the laws of nation is founded on reasons and humanity. John Jay's exhaustive report on the state's violation of the Treaty of Peace with Great Britain of 1783, sent to Congress in 1786. Constitutional reformers, Federalists, those in favor of the Constitution and federal government. Constitution reformers' mission was to honor and defend its character and respectability on the international stage, would cultivate at the Philadelphia Convention of 1787. You want to choose one of those topics and kind of go into that just a little bit? How about let's look at the constitutional reformers. Let's look at the constitutional reformers, Federalists, those in favor of the Constitution and federal government.
All right. So we're looking at Alexander Hamilton and John Madison were the two leading figures. Alexander Hamilton was an attorney. He represented 60 cases, 60 Tory and loyalists. Tories is a political party in England. The loyalists are the ones who remain loyal to the crown during the Revolutionary War period. They remain loyal. They're called loyalists. You have the patriots and the loyalists. The patriots are the ones who revolted against the crown. The loyalists are the ones who remain loyal. All right? So this is Alexander Hamilton represented them. Alexander Hamilton was a patriot. He was a patriot who represented loyalists whose properties had been confiscated. All of the states from 1781 to 1777 confiscated. They enacted the Confiscation Act. They confiscated loyalist property. They had what's called, so some of the states enacted the Trespassing Act. So loyalists who came back from England to their property, they were arrested. Confiscation Act. Alexander Hamilton represented 60 cases. Alexander Hamilton and John Madison, who are the Federalists. You have the Federalists and anti-Federalists. The Federalists, John Madison, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton. They were the major writers of the Federalist Papers. They promoted to be in a line in the harmony and the full enforcement of the 1783 treaty between Great Britain and the United States. They knew to avert another war, they had to set a right and honor that treaty between Great Britain and the United States. That is a peace treaty that ended the war. So in order for the peace to remain, you have to be what?
Obedience
and
to the
be
treaty.
obedient to the treaty. If you're not obedient, if you're confiscating property, enacting the Trespassing Act, you're not obedient to the treaty. This is going to cause another war. So Alexander Hamilton and John Madison leading the way. John Vitale's book, The Law of Nations. Google that, The Law of Nations by Vitale, Vattel, Vitale. They study Vitale. They emphasize what was on the center point during what led to the Constitutional Convention was that the Articles of Confederation, the central governing body was too weak. The states were violating, was confiscating Tory properties, confiscating that. All the states were doing this. This was a major, major issue. How do you solve this? We need a stronger instrument. We have to hold the states' feet to the fire. We have to hold their feet to the fire. How do we do that? How do we hold the states' feet to the fire? So we're independent. Forget that treaty. We ain't got to buy that by that treaty. No, we taking this land. We taking this. We got to pay our war debts. We're going to act these and we're going to enact these confiscation acts. We got to pay our war debts. We got to pay off France. We got to pay off the Netherlands. We got to pay off Spain. We owe war debts to them. So these are major issues leading up to the Constitutional Convention to solve the issue, to be in line with the laws of nation. That was major. You read the Federalist Papers. Most of them written by Alexander Hamilton, John Madison, Thomas Jefferson. And we're pushing the principles of the laws of nations where they read Vitale's book. This is major. So I'm not going to throw that problem.
Yeah.
About the Moors. I'm gonna leave that alone.
Yeah, let's do that. Now let's look at today. Let's look at today's news. He spoke of nations. Let's look at today's news. Also, what's going on today between the Ukraine and Russia conflict. We talking about nations, two nations. You have Ukraine, a sovereign nation, and that took place during the body politic after the fall of the USSR, United Social Soviet Reunion, in 1991. Now, when that occurred, they had what you call was a Warsaw Pact, which the Russian side had a Warsaw Pact with their nations and allies to protect each other, to come together in event of any other European Western expansion that would try to occur. Now, you had also a pact, which you have the NATO Pact. Now, within the NATO Pact, let's look at the NATO Pact you have here with this North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Now, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization first found 12 founding members was Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, and the United Kingdom and United States. Now, within this NATO and Warsaw agreement, Warsaw agreed that they will break up their pact. They will break up the Warsaw Pact. And in doing so, NATO will break up their pact. So each nation will operate according to their nation's constitutional rule. Now, as you can see, what's going on between the the Ukraine and Russian conflict, Warsaw honored their pact. They dismantled the Warsaw Pact. NATO did not honor their pact. They continue along their progress of Western expansion. Thus continue to move into the area of Russia, which had now brought about this war between the Ukraine and Russia conflict. This is what happens when you have a continuous overthrow of the European Union, continue trying to overreach into others' nations' sovereignty. Now, As we also let's look at also move forward into the Civil War. And let's look at Lincoln enforcing the Treaty of Peace of 1783 and the United States Constitution through a proclamation and executive order. Now, when the representative of the Southern states walked out of the United States Congress, they breached the 1778 treaty with the Lenape Moors, 1782 payment agreement with Great Britain, and the 1783 treaty with Great Britain. Now, it has been said that the states have a right to return to the Articles of Confederation and exist under the corporate charter. However, the states of the United States have a right to exist under the Articles of Confederation pursuant to the Lenape Moorish Treaty. Once the United States assembled under the Articles of Confederation in the Lenape territory, it could not occupy and assemble in the British political dominion of the colonies. You want to go into that?
Yes, that's true. When they walked out of the president Lincoln, the South walked out on him, and they breached the Constitution. That's number one, because the states that walked out were the original signers. Secondly, they breached the 1783 treaty between the Great Britain, Treaty of Peace, friendship between Great Britain and the United States. That was breached, and they breached also the Lenape Treaty because they're supposed to be at peace. Now, when they walked out, they became in the same state they was in from the beginning when they first became rebels and renegades. They was back in the same capacity as criminals. These are criminals. Lincoln blocked the ports because they were no longer do export and commerce, in and out, trading and bartering. They were no longer to exchange any goods. They were no longer to leave by ship. That means they had to flee. Lincoln blocked them and to flee. You can't do nothing. You can't grow or do nothing in the colony territory. So they attacked the United States democracy. They attacked them. They attacked the ships, and when that happened, Lincoln had to give word to the crowns, and they flooded the continent with Irish, Dutch, Sweden, Netherlands. People came off ships to fight that war on Moorish territory. And that was the really hard downfall for the Moors, because when that happened, the people that came off the ships and stuff that was fighting the Union Army, they was told they'd be granted land and territory if they fight the war. They'd be given land. The United States promised them a land grant in their political jurisdiction. The United States granted that, not the crown. So they fought, and they was able to receive pieces of land. And that destroyed the Moors, because the Moors had the counties and the towns. They killed the Sharif, and the wars continued so bad that the Moors impaired the Moors government. Even the government that was set up under Negro power, the colleges and stuff, that fell because of the war. So nobody don't talk about this. Yes, Negroes had colleges. Yes, Negroes had Albions working for them on the plantation. Yes, Negroes were voting. Stop playing with somebody. Yes, they was. Negroes in the Congress, and the House of Representatives, Negro president was up there more. Abraham Lincoln. See, you know what it is? We're still being indoctrinated. And it's being, in order for that to stop, the proper norms and principles and facts and merit have to be taught without any dispute. Let's reason. A fact with a lie. That's all there's in betweens. A fact and a lie. A deception and truth. What is it going to be? Now, if you led by truth, you'll come out of this. If you fall by deception and lies, you'll stay in the situation that you're in. Yes, go ahead, Tamara.
Now let's analyze how through the 1783 treaty, Great Britain allowed the United States to possess the British colonial occupiers as free, independent, and sovereign states to govern the dominions that was approved by the British Crown according to the Crown Survey. Let's analyze that, because you said that let's look here. You said that after the representative, now I lost my place. When the representatives of the Southern states walked out of the United States Congress, they breached the 1778 treaty with the Lenape Moors, the 1782 payment agreement with Great Britain, and the 1783 peace treaty with Great Britain as well. But however, through the peace treaty of 1783, it allowed the United States to possess the British colonial occupiers as free, independent, and sovereign states to govern the dominion that was approved by the British Crown according to the Crown Survey.
Yes, they became a sovereign by treaty. This is what the Crown saying, the Governmental Treaty between Great Britain and Morocco. The Crown makes it clear that any state by conquest or treaty, the United States is a sovereign power through a treaty. Therefore, they're under the control and power of the Moorish government. We have to understand this, because there are states by treaty. Therefore, the Crown made it clear that anyone in her dominion, or it's a dominion, by treaty or conquest, are subjects to the territorial rights of the Moors. And we have to log these treaties. We have to take all these norms and start from the beginning and place them all in place. Just for instance, when Abdullah brought the case about Thomas Jefferson and them representing the 20s, the ones that had, when the states, right, when they reluctant to release the Tories' land, this brought on the Gantt Treaty, when the British troops came back in and burned the White House, put the troops back in, because the United States was not conforming to what? Treaty and adjudicated law based on treaty. So when they see that they weren't going to turn back over and it was continuing this confiscation, they came in and raped them and burned the White House down. And they had the Pontiac Moors with them. The Moors helped them did it because they not only came in for that reason, but the United States started going to unfounded land of the Moors, and they started killing the Moors. This is why the Crown say that the Aboriginal estate is guaranteed in that treaty. Please hear me out. Why is that there?
1814
Gantt Treaty. Read that treaty.
Great Britain, United States.
Oh, they the mighty elephant.
No.
They the mighty elephant. They're doing that. They tell me how their White House got burned down to the ground by British troops. Come on now, talk to me. Oh, they got an army. They won a war. Why is they White House getting burned down? The troops get ready to kill them again. And the force of surrender was the Gantt Treaty. Read it. It said the Aboriginal estate is guaranteed. You know what a guarantee is? Nobody can take it. Why would the Crown say that? The Crown went back saying these people's land always was their land. That's the inherit. That's an inherent right. That's why they say guarantee to protect the inherent right. This is why they work so hard to take your mind, to slip your mind from you and make you like you got hit in the head with a blunt object and you like this. You don't know who you are. With the indoctrination got you, just got us like this. I mean, we don't have our right mind. We can't make no inheritance. No one can step up and claim the Moorish government, the protector. No one can claim to be a descent and kinsmanship. They come with all these different titles and names under racism and denaturalize and castrate themselves from their inheritance. That's what this indoctrination is doing. Go ahead, Tamara.
Now, so as it stands, the Peace Treaty of 1783 acts as both a legislative as well as a judiciary adjudication, as the treaty is a self-executed treaty. Let me read that again. The Peace Treaty of 1783, it acts both as a legislative as well as a judiciary adjudication, as the treaty is a self-executed treaty, because you just also stated that the treaty is the enforcing power of the states. So the states did not create themselves.
Right.
It's the treaty that provided, allowed, and gave the enforcement and creation of the states to even occur.
That's why the 1856 treaty between the General Treaty between Morocco and Great Britain, and as a matter of fact, you notice you can't catch that treaty nowhere. You have to dig and plunder on it for just to come across it, then get all the what you need, and hopefully you can get with the archives, these college archives, they'll give it to you. You just got to sign the rest of them, and that's the reason why the treaty is so important. It lays down the foundation that the Moors had before European conquest. It say when they have a dispute, they government takes it over because they're in their land. That brings it back an ancient right of inherit, tradition right, territorial rights. Why would Great Britain acknowledge that right in the treaty? if it didn't exist. They can't create that right.
Camera.
They acknowledging the right. They acknowledging the right. The Granada Treaty is the perfect example that backs up that treaty. When Granada surrendered the political jurisdiction, the territorial rights.
The 1491 Treaty of Granada.
Granada, yes. Professor, break that treaty down because you break it down lovely. I like the way you break it down.
Well, your stuff on on the November 25th, 1491, Abu Muhammad signed the Treaty of Granada. Let me back up here. So leading up to that, because I want to put it in, got to put it in historical context. The European powers established night orders to fight against the Moors. This was called the Crusades against the Moors. 1095 to 1235. They took Seville and Valencia and Cordova. The last stronghold that remained was Granada from 1235 up until November 25th, 1491. The knights, you have these Knights of Malta, Knights of St. Stephen's, Knights of Calatrava. You have the Order of Christ. You have the Knights of St. John's of Hospitalla, which was established. You have the Knights Templar, Portugal and Spain and Portugal and Aragon and Castile and England and France and Sardinia and Denmark, Germany. They formed night orders, and the night orders were authorized and sanctioned by the Pope. These night and those during the Crusade periods and fighting against the Moors. So we're leading up to that. Now we're at 1235. The last stronghold remains is Granada. You have down from 1481 to 1491, this 10-year period. Let's go. 1469 was when Aragon, the King Isabella of Castile, Queen Isabella of Castile, and King Ferdinand of Aragon married in 1469, uniting Aragon and Castile into one power. They used the old name Hispaniola. Hispaniola Spain is the derivative of Hispaniola. So they were able to that marriage consolidated those kingdoms and strengthened their power to take down the last stronghold of Moorish rule in Phoenicia, what they called Europe today. Now, this treaty of Granada, this treaty does not extinguish Moorish personal rights. In reading the treaty, Moorish personal rights to their property are protected in that treaty. Very key. Very key here. 14. Now, what happened? Philip II violated that. Philip II issued a bull in 1563, subjugating the Moors, because Moors were protected under that Treaty of Granada. Their personal rights to property protected under that Treaty of Granada. Philip II issued a bull, a Spanish bulla, subjugating the Moors under Spanish rule and classifying the Moors as Spanish, stripping the Moors of anything characteristic of Moorish nationality and Moorish culture. Key there. So now you hear a year and a half later, on May 4th, 1493, they enter Terra Divina. So this is all connected here. And in the Inter Terra Divina, they're referring to the Moors as Saracens. Hold on. You defeated the Moors, the stronghold. You signed a treaty with the Moors. How are they now Saracens? Saracens? Now you got Saracens in the, see the cover up?
Yep.
Why is Saracen in the Intrica Terra Divina? The Moors.
Birthright theft. Birthright theft in its finest.
Now, could you go into self-executed treaty? Now, well, before you do that, I know it just dawned on me, one would always put up an argument that treaties are no more because there's been violations among violations of these treaties that are put in place to protect the nations, the people of that nation, correct? Because treaties are for the people, right? Correct? And for as well as the nation. So one will place an argument that treaties are no more, treaties are old, treaties are not honored, just on and on and on about what it's not. But we're going to analyze in the next series the power of the treaties. We're going to analyze that. Yeah. But what one is not looking at is that in order for a treaty to have its power, it must have its people collectively in place. So for the autochthonous people to be dormant in their voice and not have collective political action, it's not about marching around, breaking your souls up or your shoes and things of that nature, and and having all these different campaigns of rallies and things. That is not political unity. That is not understanding political dominancy and restoring of your nation, reversion to sovereignty. So it's impossible for people, the autochthonous people who has been classified as Negro, Black, colored, Puerto Rican, Jamaican, Haitian, you name it, of the likes, to be able to have a political voice, to be able to come back and have that argument of treaty violation, because we're dysfactored, we're fractured.
It doesn't make
a nation
obligated.
Can only so how could you, so when you say a treaty is now this goes into a treaty being self-executed. This goes into the context of a treaty being self-executed. It can only be executed by nation to nation, not individual, not one body politic to another trying to speak to a nation. It is nation, government to government.
That's right, a sovereign to another sovereign. And when a treaty lays down plain the mandates, the obligations, and stipulations, it's self-executed. It don't have to be exercised. I mean, there's no, on either side, there's no need for each of them to pass a legislative act to protect their nationals, citizens, and to protect their nationals. When one is not self-executed, the people that's the descent and the kinsmanship that have the afforded protections, they can't rely on the other nation to pass legislative to protect them because they're sovereign. That's two separate powers. They have to go to their government, and that government have to pass legislature and the law to protect them, so the other nation would know that we pass legislature to protect, to force that treaty, to protect their rights. That's government. No government, no national, for me, like Abdullah said, Japan. If Japan enter a treaty and it's not self-executed, Japan don't go to the other nation legislature and tell the parliament, tell them to pass law to protect them. They go to their own. Then they enforce it under international obligation on that nation. Say, while we in this land under alienation, we pass legislation to protect our nationals. Protect our nationals. So what's happening is, Professor Abdullah said he used these different names. They're denationalizing us, number one. Therefore, they're not obligated, and there's no mandatory obligation and stipulation for them to do something good towards us, because they're not calling us who we are. So Tamara, right? If you got a self-executed treaty or a treaty that's not self-executed, the thing about it, who is the people in the treaty? The moment you get written in the treaty as a Mexican, a Negro, or Indian, you lost your Moorish inheritance right there. That means they're not dealing with a Moor. They're dealing with a creature of the law they created, a political status for a Moor to exist in a dominion. Therefore, they strip him of alienation protection by words.
So in essence, the autochthonous people are the ones who are not in alignment to put the treaty in force.
Absolutely.
So the blame could never be on what someone else is, how they're treating you when you're not having a voice. A voice is a collective proclamation. It's not one individual voice. It's not one body politic voice. It is a collective body of the kinship of people that has assembled into governmental structure to be able to make that enforcement. So if we want to point a finger at someone, we have to first point a finger at ourselves, because we're not in political unity to be able to make the enforcements of what has been well settled, laid down, and how we are to be treated, how commerce is be handled, how our land is to be, how one must come into a foreign nation, will come into our land and exchange commerce and economics and things of that nature. We're not in harmony. We're not in harmony. We're not in alignment. So if there's a finger to be pointed, we must first look in the mirror and point a finger at ourselves first.
Yes.
So until we allow our minds to come to the full understanding of illumination that the revolution starts with us. It starts with our collective unity, our constitution one to another, in order to restore that in which our ancestors bled and died and waved the flag for our protection. So we're going to take one last break for Academy of Providence and give our sponsors some thanks for the support that they bring us for Moroccan Post.
Are you a deep diver for knowledge? Do you like to explore historical content of language, grammar, and law? Well, Academy of Providence is a unique certificate-based virtual learning institution with an aim to draw out a person's innate talents and abilities by imparting the knowledge of languages, epistemology, scientific reasoning, jurisprudence, positive law, history, literature, rhetoric, and more. The channels through which those abilities would flourish and serve the communities as well as the nation. Our goal is to help you dive deep into critical analysis, thinking and reasoning of these areas towards becoming philosophers or humanity of learning or humanity of science, which creates society's great artists, painters, musicians, jurists, doctors, astronomers, biologists, engineers, cartographers, surveyors, photographers, chemists, herbalists, entrepreneurs, computer scientists, teachers, politicians, and statesmen. So, if you are determined and willing to go beyond, Academy of Providence is the perfect place for you. For more information, visit our website, www.academyofprovidence.org.
Thank you, we're back. Thank you for tuning in to Moroccan Post, where we dive into yesterday's events for today's information and tomorrow's news. Now, what we're going to look at also is the colleges chartered by the English-British Crown before 1776 that are protected under the Treaty of Paris. Now, we're going to go through these really slow so you can get an understanding of that. Now, it was New College. The name was originally New College in 1636, currently known as Harvard University in Boston, Massachusetts. You have College of William and Mary of 1698 in Williamsburg, Virginia. You have the college was previously named Collegiate School in 1701. The current name is Yale College, that is in New Haven, Connecticut. In 1749, the original name was College of Jersey. The current name is Princeton University, that is Princeton, New Jersey. You have Washington and Lee University in 1749 in Lexington, Virginia. You have Columbia University The original name in 1754 was King's College, and that is in New York City. We have in 1755, the original name was College of Philadelphia, University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In 1764, the original name was College of Rhode Island, which is currently now Brown University of Providence of Rhode Island. And here we go in 1766, Professor Abdullah Bey alma mater, Queens College. The current name is Rutgers University in New Brunswick, New Jersey. In 1769, you have Dartmouth College in Hanover, New Hampshire. In 1752, you have Salem College in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and Hampton Sydney College in 1775 in Hampton, Sydney, Virginia. Now, these are all colleges that are chartered by the king before 1776 that are protected under 1783. Now, we're going to also, in the next series, we go into treaty power. We're going to show you the case with Dartmouth College and how the treaty power still is in force to today. We're going to go into that to show you that connection. Now, we're going to look at some statistics of what's going on here, because people are, we love to clap. They love to say, oh, the first this, the first black this, the first black this. But let's look at this well-settled play that has always taken place and still going on today. United States Supreme Court judicial clerkship, mostly from Harvard and Yale. In 2019, out of 41 clerks, there were 13 from Yale and 10 from Harvard. Since 2010, 78 of the 310 judicial clerks of the United States Supreme Court came from Harvard Law School and 74 from Yale Law School. The United States Supreme Court judicial clerkship placement 2013 through 2019 terms, 73 was from Yale Law School and 62 from Harvard Law School. Since 1960, 491 graduates of Harvard Law School have clerked for a Supreme Court clerk justice, and 378 graduates of Yale Law School have clerked for a Supreme Court justice. Now, the United States Supreme Court justice clerkship, mostly from Harvard and Yale. Let's look up in 2016. All of the Supreme Court justices have attended either Yale or Harvard or Yale Law School. Checkmate, congratulations. Once again, prophecy fulfilled. So once one see, this congratulatory, the first Black African-American U.S. court justice. Keep in mind that these are well-settled plans that they put in place. They have to keep our people in a docile mind state to always clap and think they're doing something good. Keep in mind, Ketanji Brown Jackson they say she's an American attorney and jurist. It does not say that she's a Black African-American attorney or jurist. We'll get into that. It say her nationality is American. It doesn't say her nationality is African-American, Afro-American, Black, Negro. It say her education. She went to Miami Palmetto Senior High School, Harvard Law School, Harvard University. Didn't we say before that all of the Supreme Court justices have attended either Harvard or Yale Law School? This is not a surprise. This is just another move on the board. Checkmate. Let's get into American attorney and jurist. Let's get into the nationality of that. You might.
An American is not definitely a nationality. American is just a more attached to a political jurisdiction of one of the crowns. It's a status. An American is a status. It's a political status. She's claiming a political status, and she's a subject of the crown, a fraternity order. She's a subject of the crown, and and her job is to make sure that anyone getting that Supreme Court, when anything affecting either of the crown's business, the treaty, grant law, private private international law, that them justices train in these two universities in that matter to protect the crown authority affairs. I mean, when nothing comes, that's why everybody comes from there. They have to protect the crown interest, the Lord Proprietors. They have to. They can't come for Notre Dame and all these other colleges because they have to be groomed, like Professor Abdullah said, they have to be groomed on the difference of public international law and private international law.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me? There's private international law, there's public international law. They are groomed.
Well groomed.
Yes.
Well groomed.
They know. That's why when they get the case, what do? They go back to.
So when our people are like, oh, they haven't done anything for the Black people. They haven't done anything about reparations. They haven't done anything about anti-lynching bill. Well, it states that she is an American attorney, which she's a part of the British Accredited Registry.
Yes. Which
is a membership of the Crown, and she's a jurist. Let's get into the jurist. That means she has knowledge of international law, jurisprudence, positive law. Now, we're not talking about someone who just understands corporate structure. Let's get into the functionalities of a jurist in international law.
All right, you have what is called an international jurist, because all jurists are not made equal. All right, so all jurists are not made equal. You have jurists who are international law jurists, jurists who are trained and studied in ecclesiastical law, ancient customs, ancient world culture. All right, you have those levels of jurists. Ancient world history. So you have jurists who are well-rounded in those fields, the areas of ancient world history, ancient world culture, ancient world philosophy. And so they have a foundational knowledge of philosophy on ancient principles. Then you have jurists who may not be as well educated on that level. All right, so you have jurists who are just dealing with national jurists. But if you talk about on the supreme level, let's once again, let's go to the Federalist Papers. So I'm going to go to the Federalist Papers. Federalist Papers, as Alexander Hamilton, which she's most likely have read. Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. They are the authors who mostly wrote the Federalist Papers. They studied Vital. Vital wrote the book called The Laws of the Nation. He lived between 1727 to 1767. Vattel, The Laws of Nation, Vital. And that's the main title, and there's a long subtitle. This was used as the basis to write the Federalist Papers. This was the basis. Vital was the basis of their study in political philosophy and international law, public international law. Vital was their teacher. That was the basis of which they used. They was well schooled. So I want to give a reference point, all right, to the Federalist Papers in which she has studied. There's no way that they have not studied the Federalist Papers, because they're looking at a principle. Because you're looking at, so what was the major issue that John Madison and Alexander Hamilton were directing the others to be in line with the laws of nation? So I'm just giving you a principle of law here, a ruling principle, which they have studied. Got to direct them to something. Got to direct it to something that's solid. All right, so it would behoove you to read the Federalist Papers along with Vitale's book, The Law of Nations. Get Vitale's book, The Law of Nations, and read the Federalist Papers. But we need to be well grounded. All right. So we're looking at in political philosophy. You have philosophy. You have political philosophy. You have political science. You have public international law. You also have ancient world customs and principles and festivals and holidays. You have ecclesiastical law. You have the knowledge that we were talking about of the unseen world, of that compass and square, of which they have knowledge of. Because that is the ultimate power, the unseen world. They have knowledge of that. So I just wanted to, but all jurists are not made equal.
That's true.
All right, now before we round out, I know a lot of times that this last image, some people, it may shake them. I don't know. I don't know the body of viewership that we have. And a lot of times when, our people see this symbol, they will automatically assign this symbol, this imagery, to the KKK. This is a symbol of the KKK. This symbol represents hatred. It's the Confederate flag. And this Confederate flag is a mandate on this. It say all debts contracted and engagement enter into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be as valid against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. Now, Brother Abdullah, I want you to go into the esoterical meaning of the galactic cross, the Confederate flag, if you would, for our viewing audience.
So there's two crosses. You have what's called the double cross. All right, you see that in the British flag. All right, you see the double cross. All right, so that's going to give you both of them. I'm going to give you the double cross and the galactic cross. So we have the double cross you see in the British flag. That is the Earth cross that forms the four seasons. The four seasons, all right, as the Earth rotates on her axis, as she's rotating on her axis, it's revolving around the sun. 90 days, 90 days, 90 days, 90 days, all right? That forms, all right? So now you have the celestial equator, all right? That's your Earth cross. Then you have your galactic cross. Galactic means milk. That's the Milky Way. So you have the galactic equator, all right? That's that Milky Way. So you have the galactic equator, the galactic cross, along with the galactic equator. Then you have the Earth cross along with the celestial equator. They intersect every 6,500 years. What occurs is catastrophe. But no problem. You're the seer. You have the cross keys of Chaldea. With the cross keys of Chaldea, you have this knowledge to foresee.
Wakanda forever.
The compass is square with the G in the middle. Geometry is used to decode or to unlock the code of the unseen world. So to study the unseen world, you use geometry. It is a predictable code. It's patterns, snowflakes, leaves. So these you start seeing this. So that's why you have the compass and square along with the galactic cross. Now this galactic cross, the keys they don't want us to, they keep us from us. Keep this from them. Let's distort it. Let's distort it. Let's claim it. All right? Let's claim it. And we're gonna lynch them. We're gonna lynch them. All right? We're gonna put this. All right, we're gonna lynch them so they can see what they're doing. All right. Oh, see, they used that. See, they lynched him when they put that, the Confederate flag, they lynched him. They walked around. See what they're doing? See what they're doing? They're getting us, they're constructing a distorted meaning for us to look at it, to keep us away from it. How do you get the people back to it? I'm doing it. I'm doing it. By restoring it, its true meaning, its astronomical meaning, its cosmological meaning. I'm doing it. This is how it's done. By saying that it's ours, not good enough. Having the knowledge of it is what we got to get to. This is how you remove the constructed, orchestrated fear. The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. Those who control the meaning of words control the people who must use them. Philip K. Dick.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
All right, Brother Shem, do you have any last minute parting words before we close out for the evening? I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this wonderful analyzing this chessboard of moves that has taken place with the British European powers. And because anytime you look at now, we can see how we now become a player at the game, not a figment on the board, and not to be used as pawns to be moved around. So when you see and understand how you're being captured, how you have been captured, and you're under subjugation and occupation, now you find ways, now you be able to truly look at your liberation and how is that possible and how we can get there. You have any further parting words, Jim?
It's intimidation and fear. One of the factors of it all is to intimidate us and put us under fear. The act of the mission of making one think that you carry this power and that you don't hold it a power. In fact, you can't even tap in. You're just trying to tap into it, but you're throwing it out there in language like you already did it. When in fact, the people, the divinity that's in us can tap into the unseen power. They know this. So what they do is they extort and put us under fear of calling us, oh, they're doing witchcraft, they're doing roots. You know, look at it. He talking about he praying to this. Oh, we under fear, and be under fear, intimidation, bad.
Is it fear? Let's analyze that.
It is fear.
But is it fear and intimidation?
Mm-hmm.
The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words.
That's right.
Those who control the meaning of words,
that's right,
control those who must use them.
So you're saying it only becomes fear.
You got it.
It only becomes fear when you have the knowledge of who you are and you decide not to.
No, when you lack the knowledge.
When you lack the knowledge, then you decide not to act on that. That goes in alignment with the Refugee Act.
No, it's the lack of. It's not. All right.
No, what I'm saying, no. What I'm saying, okay, this is what I'm saying. When you have the knowledge of who you are, and you continue to turn away from it because you don't take the steps in being able to unite and be with others who are trying to get to the liberation of and the restoration of your government.
You fear consequences.
That's only a handful of our people, though.
Right. No. What I'm saying,
I know what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that just say the people who come into the knowledge of this, and then what happened is that you have people to say they will go out here and they will get some documents signed by someone, stamped, and then they run into these other legal strangleholds, and they become also prisoners of war. They become, their body become captured, and then now they have to go through all this legal hoops to get from out of being in these bondage and these prison systems and things of that nature. So a lot of them would say, oh, this Moorish-ish don't work no more.
But that's only a handful of
I understand that.
What I'm saying is, out of 20 million of our people, out of 20 million, how many would you say that you're referring to. That's only a handful. Out of 20, 30, 40 million of our people, that is only a handful. They don't scratch the surface. The ones that know, like we know, and don't do anything, that's
no,
that's not the point I'm making.
What?
I'm talking about numbers. The ones who know that they're Moors and say that this S don't work. That's only out of 40 million of us. That's only a handful.
Yeah, that's not a lot. A lot of
Like
them
like the numbers are so small of those people that Tamara is alluding to that it wouldn't matter. It's too small. Out of 40 million, they're too small. The 40 million are so overwhelming. Let's look down on this block here, on this block. How many of those people on this block that know are not doing anything? Just on this block.
Right,
on the street. Let's say on the street. On the street.
We understand, Professor, that they don't have the knowledge. When you don't have the knowledge, you don't know you have the right. If you don't have the right, then it can't be fair intimidation. It's ignorance, not knowing. Now, fair intimidation is when you do know, and you do have some strength in numbers to do something, and you neglect to do it because there's a repercussion coming behind.
We don't have to strengthen numbers.
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I'm clarify what Tamara's saying.
Right.
No, but I'm saying, but we don't have to strengthen numbers.
No, we agree to that. We passed
we
that.
don't
We
have
agree
to
to that.
strengthen numbers.
But I'm setting a part what Tamara's saying about on the other hand.
You made a statement. It's a statement of fact.
But that's a statement of fact.
It's not. We don't have to strengthen numbers.
I never said we had to strengthen numbers. What I said, listen to me again, Professor Abdullah.
Say it again.
So I said, if there's a number of people that's awakened as Moors, and there's a definite number there to come together and do something, and they neglect to do it because out of some kind of repercussion with that what may happen to them, then that means them numbers that's awakening Moors are intimidated and the unfair.
But you mentioned strength in numbers, though. So when you went to repeat it.
Well, we have the strength in the numbers that we have, the ones that are conscious.
No, I was talking about his repeating. He did, and you're repeating the statement. You missed the strength in numbers. So when you repeat it and you mention and miss that point, because my point was based on your saying strength in numbers. We don't have the strength in numbers.
Not now. I agree with that. I have to agree with that.
I'm talking now.
But that's not what Tamara was talking about. Tamara was talking about people. People Tamara's talking about people that does have the knowledge that they're Moors. They've been having knowledge for 20 years that they're Moors. I know they don't have the strength and number to do government, but they do have the strength and number to come together as a group. And they do have some form of background. Let me explain what I mean. There's some form of a knowledge of that. If their father got $1 million, he died. They step up to claim that $1 million. Why is that? Now, Professor, I'm doing real reality right now.
All right. I did acknowledge that. I acknowledge that. I'm saying those numbers are few.
I agree. No, but I'm not disputing that. I'm talking about it's enough now for a group.
But I acknowledge it. You're the way you're explaining to me as if I never acknowledged it. I acknowledge it.
Okay.
I'm saying the numbers are few. They're few. They're few. The numbers are few. Like the numbers of people who know are not doing anything. The numbers are few.
Let me ask you a question.
That's all I'm saying.
This is good. This is good to look at this. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's analyze this. Did all the Europeans have the knowledge of sovereign power before they was in a position of benefiting from it?
All right, let's back up. Yeah, all right. They were backed by France. They were already in a structure. They were already in a structure under colonial power. They were members of the judiciary. They were members of the assembly under the crown. You had the proprietary colonies. You have the colonies that were governed by the companies. You had the royal colonies.
No, I said all. I
No,
said all the
I-
Europeans. I'm talking about the subjects too.
No, I'm saying I have to in order for people to understand, I gotta lead to that. They were already in a structure, in a proprietary colony structure, and a royal colony structure, and a company structure under the colony. They went to schools. These esquires, parents were merchants. They didn't come out of anywhere. They already had negotiations, connections with France. France backed them. This whole lie that George Washington had a poor army, tattered, that is a lie. The Netherlands, Spain, and France backed them. How in the world can you accrue war debts? If you war debt, you're talking about George Washington's army, they're lying in the textbooks. The war debts came because they got a lot of finance from France. Why France has an interest here? Because France lost the war with Great Britain. So France is going to have an interest. France is going to have an interest to back the children of their enemy. The children of their enemy, those who revolted against the crown. France is going to have an interest to back them. France lost a large portion of our land to Great Britain in 1763. All right, what about Spain? France ceded Louisiana territory to Spain in 1762 under the Treaty of Waterloo. So Spain has an interest because Spain wants to maintain control of the Louisiana area. All right, the Netherlands lost to Great Britain. The Netherlands controls New York, all right, and New York, the Camden area was controlled by the Dutch. So the Dutch has an interest because they're trying to gain control of what they lost to Great Britain. Right. So you have Spain, France, and the Netherlands who have an interest, so they're going to back their children. They're going to back Great Britain's child who's in rebellion. Man, got an issue in the house. You got conflict in the house. I'm gonna back the child. I'm gonna fund the child. So they accrued this tremendous war debt. They were not no poor nothing. They didn't come out of anywhere. They were well educated. They went to Harvard. They went to Yale. They went to King's College. They were well educated. We're not talking about the ordinary.
Well, I said all.
All right.
I said all.
No,
my question statement was, are you saying that all the Slavic European people, I just added Slavic. So I said, so you are saying all the European people, I'm not talking about the people that was put in place of parliament control and things of that nature. You're saying that all the European people had knowledge of national sovereign power before, I'm not talking about before the Privy Council and all them were doing what they were doing to say, okay, we know the agenda. We all know the agenda. Are they just benefactors of what the collective ones, the collective few, which was the ones that was in higher positions, high merchants, put in effect these acts of being able to usurp lands and expand their mercantile and their business. So basically, your claim is that all Slavic people, all European people.
All right, let me tell you what
so
I'm saying.
that was my question.
All right, let me finish what I'm saying. What I'm saying, they were already working in a colonial structure that they didn't establish. They didn't establish this colonial structure that they were working in as judges, that they're working in as assembly. This was a colonial structure, the proprietary structure, the company structure, and the royal colony structure was traded by the crown, was funded, all right, by high merchants and everything. They were already working in that, and they were educated.
I'm talking about the peasants.
I'm Tamara.
The peasants understood the assignments.
Tamara, let me finish.
I am.
Well, let me finish. You asked me questions, then let me finish.
So you're saying the peasants understood the assignment.
I'm going to finish, Tamara. So what I'm saying is that they were operating within. I'm not talking about the peasants. Those who led the peasants were operating in a structure that they didn't organize. They were operating in a structure that was well funded by high merchants, by the Privy Council that they didn't organize. They were educated through educational systems that they didn't organize. They benefited from that. They made connections. By being in these structures, they were able to connect with France, Spain, and Portugal. They were already connected. They were highly educated. So they already had this connection already before they revolted. Before they revolted against the crown, they had already connections. They already had ties and everything with France, Spain, and Portugal, and so forth. They already had those connections. They were already working in a political structure. They didn't come out of anywhere. That's a lie in the textbook. That's a lie in the textbook that they came out of anywhere, that they were poor. That's a bull-faced lie.
So what you saying?
So the answer to the question is no. Everyone did have the knowledge of political sovereignty and sovereign power. The answer to the question is no. So you had a few that were in charge of legislative, judicial, executive, high merchants, commerce, trade, that took on the task of the Western expansion of coming to overthrow the Moors and take the land and take the commerce and things of that nature. And you have the peasants who did not have the knowledge, benefit to this day from the acts of those who did the work. Now, we're going to look at the collective body of Moors who claim they're out doing the work. That's what we have to compare and contrast. There has to be unity amongst the ones who are doing the work, because everyone is not going to be of a mindset to be able to be in a political position to restore what has been usurped, the Moorish government. So the ones that are doing the work, the ones who have the capability to make the connections, must unite. And then you will have those who do not have the mental capability to understand that will reap the benefits of the restoration of the Moorish imperial divan being restored. That was my point. And we're talking about collectiveness.
Well, doing the work is, if looking back, and if you say you're doing the work and you're operating as a Moorish government, then you're supposed to have diplomatic relationship and communication channels open with the foreign nations based on the ancient contract.
You might
might not
move over. Move it over.
Yes,
move it over.
Based on a contract. There are Moors that have not been taught the philosophy, the methodology of the true norms and merit and jurisprudence for positive law, positive culture. They haven't been educated in that field. And what happened is they're taking upon themselves individually or groups just to say, I'm gonna achieve this because I'm gonna do it this way. And that's a stone in your shoe, or that's a nail you stepped on, because you don't have the philosophy and the knowledge to get the people back. You ever hear someone say, I got a man out of jail, or I'm open up organization to get our people back, their societies. But if you don't give a person back the right mind frame to make a claim on something that's inherited, that's powerful, then they would never be able to do nothing anyway. And like, I do agree with Professor Abdullah. I don't care if you have 100,000 men and women that's operating at that level. The fact that the matter is, They just can't be in the world for their children themselves all the time. So they have to create an education system where they teach the Moors their nationality, teach them the difference between race and nationality and nationalization. These are and teach them also the thing between language. When language is tainted and is no good for you, and we can't go that way. That's the long overhaul and doing something. So when you say that you go back and look back, and men would say that other men have been doing this and they set this up, and I would say, show me your works and your evidence, because you have to show me works and evidence for that statement to be real. And if you can't show me no works and evidence, then the statement is no good. You just doing what's been done for the last, like Professor Abdullah said, 70 years parody, something that can't be proven. And I think the problem is that we don't have enough Moors that's acknowledged, have the knowledge on this high level of a jurist to put not just themselves, but just to put out there the revelation to the people so they can get their right mind back, their conscience back. And once we can do that, and we can work the people out of not saying you black, Afro-American, us, black, Afro-American, color, if we can get them out of saying they're not that and get them as saying that, well, we all Moors, that's a start. Because once you say that, attached to that is protection, treaty protection. Because once you make that claim, then you come together and form what? A government structure, a community. Once that community is formed, it's formed by Moors, native Moors. So no one can take and strip you of your woman and manhood and take your children in these concentration camps because you're dealing with Moor. The word Moor is the native Moor. The only one can deal with them are the nations that sign treaties with them. If we can educate the people and stop saying they're Afro-American, black, and colored, and get just to say they Moors and write that down and have it in their head, and we can assimilate them together, that's a powerful weapon.
I mean, we see assemblies throughout every Sunday. Wednesday and Sundays, you see assemblies of church organizations that occur every week. So the understanding of assembly is there. The understanding of a congregation is there. Yes. The organizational flow, who's in charge, such as from, you have your pastor, you have your associate pastor, you have what you call the deacons, you have the deaconess, you have the what you call the people that stand at the door, usher board, you have the secretary, the treasurer. So our people do understand order. Now there's a statement that goes around as far as any church. It's called there's the workings of the faithful few. Now, even in your large congregations of, I can say anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000, you only have a small selective few doing the work to keep that organization running and afloat.
That's right.
But however, you have the remainder, which is the majority of the remainder, that benefits from the building being available and whatever services they may have within that organization to be a part of an organization structure. So even within government structure, you're going to have the faithful few that's doing the work and where the many benefits the most. And that's why we wanted to look at and analyze the the unity of what shall take place with the few that are doing the work of liberation. Must lay down any grievances, lay down any conflicts, lay down, I don't fool with that group. They don't know what they're talking about. Let's have a common understanding in place that we are under occupation, usurpation, who we are in our kinship and bloodship line. Let's stand on what we are and put aside the differences of knowledge and differences in word application. We can put that to the side. Deal with that at another time when we finally build a table to even sit at one to another. That's my take on things.
Okay, Tamara, you can't get nobody to sit down at the table and agree to something when one is competent, the other one is incompetent.
No, I didn't say
No,
incompetent
I'm not disagreeing with you. No, what I'm saying is this right here with the Moors. We have Moors out here that do know they're Moors, but they don't have the philosophy and the knowledge, the structure of government and assimilate the people and educate them in philosophy. But they would.
But do they, hold on, but do they know they're more?
I just say, yes, they do know they're
Okay,
more.
that's why I said, let's talk about what is. They know they're more. They know that there's a fight for liberation. Whether you're at the knowledge of a jurist level, such as yourself and others, who has studied into the understanding of international law, whether they're at that level or at the level of, just coming into the understanding of international law and government structure. The willingness to be in the number to get the work done is what we need to look at. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with that. Yes, that's
that's all I'm saying.
You mean working us up to a level where we're all conscious, the same consciousness, where we can work together and sit at the table. That's what you mean, right?
Everybody may not be equal. Someone always may have a higher understanding than what is. But the point is, have a common understanding of okay, let's just have one common understanding. We under occupation. We need to be free. Can we agree to that?
Yeah.
Can we agree to we have to put a plan in place to work together to get off and up under this? Can we agree to that? So can we agree to some fundamental things? Let's talk about what we won't agree with. Let's talk about what we need to agree to. That's what I'm saying. Any final words, Brother Abdullah?
Oh, this was great. All right. The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. Those who control the meaning of words control the people who must use them. Philip Dick.
If we can get 1 million, or let's say 1 million Moors, just to acknowledge that they are Moors and willing to sign an application and fill it out and make a claim on the application that they're Moors and they're willing to self-govern their money and suffer in different providence. That mindset is to take us a long way, because it doesn't make the fact at the time when you become awakening, the fact of the matter is you're willing to do what it takes to get your inheritance. That's what it comes down to. We're willing to come together and get our inheritance. We're willing to come together and do whatever the other jurists say that we need to do so we can be protected by these treaties, force these treaties, and have diplomatic relationship. If we can go ahead and get the Moors to that, like Tamara said, there's no need fighting, because fighting ain't gonna help those who are there that don't know they Moors. We have to push and get them to just acknowledge the application of something that they Moors. Commit themselves to signing something. See, in contract law, everybody commit themselves to somewhere in the government to sign their instrument. We the last person to, I don't want to sign that because of fit. Because first of all, we don't know. Be honest, we don't know. I'm not talking about the ones the few that did know.
Mike.
Yes.
Mike.
I'm talking about the ones that don't know. They in fear because, like Professor Abdullah said, they don't see no structure. They see City Hall. They see the federal building. They see the police officers driving their cars. They see the fire engine putting out fires. They don't see any structure. And because that becomes not a fear, intimidation comes in.
More structure.
More structure.
You just mentioned structure.
Yeah, more
They
structure.
see structure. They see structure.
They don't see any more structure. So therefore, they don't see a protector. I mean, something happened, who's going to speak up for me? Who's going to come for me? Who's going to stand up for me with a badge?
Where do I go?
Yes.
Where do I go?
Yeah, that's right. Where do I go?
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you for tuning in once again to Moroccan Post, our monthly digital news that we go live on air the second Friday of each month, where we dive into yesterday's events, to today's information, and tomorrow's news. Now, upcoming course that we have is Business 101, which is public business for private affairs, and it aims to provide aspiring entrepreneurs hobbies, hustlers, startups, and business reorganizers with the needed resources to succeed in their business venture. This course will be a 1-hour course on Wednesday, starting February 11th until June the 8th. It's from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a virtual course that is via Zoom, $100, and yours truly, Tamara L., will be the instructor for this course. Now, please continue to join us on Moroccan Post the second Friday each month from 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also join us on State of the Nationals on Crom TV, second and fourth Sundays of each month from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, Sunday, we will not be airing on this Sunday, the second Sunday, because we will be celebrating Professor Abdullah Talib Bey solar return on that day. So we will not be going live that day. So we will cumpleaños feliz. We will tune in on State of the Nationals on Crom TV on the 3rd and the 4th Sunday of this month. And that is, you can find that on Moroccan Post News on our YouTube, also on Crom TV. We have went into partnership through Crom TV Network for State of the Nationals to be featured on that platform. We are very excited about the work that's being done there. We've had about three or four segments on there.
Three.
I know our first segment was called Love Language. Our second segment was called Activate Your Nationality. And then the third, Matriarch Rising and
America Decoded.
And American Decoded.
There are 4.
So please go to our page, American Post News on YouTube, and you'll be able to find those lectures that we feature on State of the Nationals. Also, you can find them on Crom TV as well. So once again, we thank you for tuning in to Moroccan Post. We bid you farewell to next month, and you have a wonderful evening.